Good evening, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order, January 27th, Regional Council meeting. Just to acknowledge that the Northern Rockies Administration Center is located in the heart of the traditional territory of the Dene, Cree, and Dene Sa people of Fort Nelson and Prophet River First Nations. We further recognize the rights provided by our treaty and also celebrate the contributions and the enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Are there any additions, Council? CAO?
No, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Okay, looking for adoption of the agenda. Motion by Councillor Dickey, second by Councillor Souls. All in favor? Motion carries. Adoption of the minutes. The Committee of the Whole, November 29th of 2024. Committee of the Whole, January 13th, 2025. Regional Council meeting, January 13th, 2025. Motion by Councillor Dickey, seconded by Councillor Roper. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. Moving on to 7.1, Administration Report 04, proposed updates to recruitment and retention, education and training incentive, or the RETI program. Mrs. Penny, welcome again.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. On October 15th, 2024, Regional Council was presented with the Committee of the Whole Report number 14, which identified aspects of the program for review and discussion. Report number 4 that you have in front of you tonight identifies aspects of the program contemplated for updates, previous discussion with Regional Council, additional information for consideration, and recommended program updates. So the first one, not 100% sure how you'd like to go through this, if you want to go through one at a time and make a decision, or make decisions towards the end, but we can start and see.
Does council have any specific wishes, how they wish to proceed? Mayor, did you have any idea?
I'm comfortable if anybody wants to just ask, I don't think we need to go through them individually. I read them all and, I'm comfortable, but if everybody else has read them and has any questions, maybe we can proceed that way. It'll make it move along a little smoother, a little quicker, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, I can start with the nursing incentives and just give a brief overview. So nursing incentives, both RNs and LPNs can receive the $30,000 up to March 31st, 2025. However, current financial incentives for RNs is after 1 year, they would receive $3,000, and after 2 years, they would receive another $4,500 for a total of $7,500. And LPNs after 3 months receive $3,000. Currently, RN is a higher demand position of focus. Changes to the amount of RN incentives is not recommended at this time. However, council's input is sought on aligning payment timing between RN and LPN incentives.
So changes to the amount is not being recommended, but
no.
If I'm understanding correctly, it's when it's paid out.
Yeah. Because currently we have our RNs, which are a higher demanding position, have to do a return to service of 1 year before they receive the first financial incentive. However, an LPN will start and do a 90-day probationary period and get their $30,000. So it's not really a return to service. It's after their probation, they're eligible.
Okay, so then maybe we should think about making that equitable, either picking one or the other. So the choices would be to speed up the allotment to the LPN. No, speed up the allotment to the RN or delay the allotment to the LPN.
Correct.
Okay. Does council have any preferences?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
So, so the Northern Health is giving an incentive, a significant incentive of $30,000 in that first year. There might be some delay in the way that's handled, but it's $30,000 in the first year if they're prepared to, go through the motions to get it. So it makes some sense to me that as a retention bonus, we move ours out to year 2 and year 3. However, seeing how there's no it might end on March the 31st or March 1st. I don't have the report right in front of me. Because it might end, they might not continue on with this incentive to start. I think maybe we should just hold off on doing anything until we know what Northern Health is doing. But I would like to move to the year 2 and 3 for us if Northern Health is still giving an incentive in year 1.
Okay, thanks for that reminder. I think that's why we ended up delaying the payment to the RNs, is because they got that 30,000, but the LPNs weren't at that time getting a signing bonus from Northern Health. So yeah, thanks for that reminder, Mayor. That's why we scheduled it the way that we did.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing you suggest is that we just leave it the same as it is for now and see what Northern Health ends up doing.
That's right. And if they get rid of the 30,000, then we keep our incentive in year 1 and 2. But if they leave the incentive, then we move, we move to year 2 and 3 as a incentive for them to stay in year 2 and 3. And we can bring this back, in March or April, once we know what Northern Health is doing.
Okay. And, yep, go ahead.
I think if they remove the 30,000, I'd prefer to see them get the 3,000 after 3 months and match it to the LPNs.
To the LPN?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm not sure how I feel about, like, I'm good with them getting paid out after 3 months if Northern Health removes that bonus. But I'm not sure how I feel about the mayor's proposal about delaying it to year 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, however that works. But we can have a further discussion on that after we see what Northern Health is going to do. Yes? Okay.
Yep.
So
Right.
leave it as is and bring back in April?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have a question before we move away from nursing. Because I don't know if we still are experiencing a shortage of emergency room trained nurses. And if we are, should we move that specific category to the professions of focus and premiums? Because then you get an additional premium if you're under that focus, right?
Correct.
So that was a thought that I had, because that's my understanding of the closures that we have had in the past, and thankfully not the recent past, were due to nursing shortage and specifically emergency room trained nurses. So if we could recruit more of those, then we would be less likely to have closures based on that shortage. So thoughts on that, council? Mayor?
I'm okay with that suggestion. I mean, I think the better trained they are, if we can give them incentives for that, or if there's a possibility of us incentivizing the nurses that we have now that aren't trained to become trained. I don't know what that process looks like, but I would sooner train somebody, use the money to train somebody who's here and interested in getting that training than trying to recruit people in. But I'm really good either way.
Okay, perhaps.
Or both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any information on that training? It's my understanding that they have to leave the community for a certain length of time to work in a hospital that has more traffic than we do and different types of emergency room medicine, because we don't have the designation that allows us to do that training here, correct?
That is correct. And on a good note, we already have one of our new recruits that's taking that training.
Yay.
Nice.
Yay. Yes.
So can we find out what those costs are with that new recruit? Sort of keep track of what the resources are required to get that done. I mean, I'm sure they're doing it for the most part on their own, but if we can understand what that process looks like, you know, we might be able to enhance the Ready program that way.
Well, and I'm guessing they would be ready. They would be eligible for the education portion for the upgrade as well,
Right.
Well,
right? Because that is in the Ready, but I will get the process for you.
because I'm thinking about, you know, housing and that sort of thing while they're out of the community, if there's potential for that
Mm,
to help.
okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, and so then the next one was allocations per year. So maintain current allocation limits, but consult council when application exceeds parameters. So no changes recommended at this time. Profession of focus and premiums. Retain a list of critical positions, but updated to reflect current needs with changes reported quarterly. Updated list includes RN, LPN, pharmacist, diagnostic medical sonographer, which with the good news, hopefully we can take that off of there.
Mhm.
Diagnostic imaging assistant, social worker, and physiotherapist.
And then with just looking into including emergency.
Yes.
Yep.
I will add that. ERRN.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next one is scholarships. So the current scholarship amount is $2,000. We have 2 scholarships through the municipality. They may require adjustments to better align with tuition costs. Further council consideration is needed. In a survey of tuition costs, particularly for RNs, the tuition ranges from $5,000 to $8,000 annually.
Comments?
So I have a question for the councillors who were here when that was put in, if there are any.
Mm.
Can we remember what the tuition fees were when we set the amount at 2,000? Like, have they increased double? Do we have any idea of sort of the increase in the tuition fees since we put this in at $2,000 level?
No, pardon me. Yeah, so, it actually predates me, Mayor.
What?
Yes, it was here before me, but I did do some research. I went through the FNSS scholarship booklet, and $2,000 is one of the higher awards. And I wanted to have maybe just a little discussion around, because we give between $5,000 and $8,000 a year to FNSS students. They're just split on different categories. So I'm not saying that this is a good idea, but just something for our consideration is that if we gave out one award, I mean, the bad part of that, it would just be one award, but the good part of that, it could be like $8,000 or $10,000 to go to a student that's going into a health-related field. Because right now, the way it's written, both the Dr. Casa Memorial and the Dr. Mostert Annual Health Scholarship, although the focus is on health, it doesn't necessarily have to be health. It could be like in sciences or another. And then when I was looking at that right up to, they don't have to have been successfully complete a semester or anything, or even have acceptance into a university or college. It just says they have to have had applied. So I think that we need to rework that wording. It's too late for this year, but for the following year, I think at the very least, we need to rework that. But I was kind of wanting to get your thoughts on how we felt about maybe having less awards, but a greater amount of money. And you can think on it and we can have a discussion at another time, because I know I'm just kind of like, springing it on you.
Yeah, well, I'd like to plant this seed if I could. So I mean, I like the idea of the larger one, you know, but there's no guarantee that that one person will come back to the community, right? With the
For
scholarship.
sure.
It's not like a return for service sort of a concept. So the more scholarships that you give, of course, they need to be significant enough that people will actually apply for them. But the more of those students that get a scholarship, the more opportunity for at least one of them, or maybe more, to finish and actually come back to the community. It's sort of just think about the idea of putting all your eggs in one basket. That's all.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Again, I think everybody should think about it, and we should have another discussion, maybe at budget time.
Okay. But in the meantime, can we look at rewording
Oh,
the
for sure.
scholarship description?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that. I like the idea of being registered or you know, at least completion of a semester.
Go ahead.
We'll have to work with the school on it because our records had that it's payable upon commencement of the second semester of studies. So you have to complete your first semester. So I don't know if
Okay.
there might be just a miscommunication between the scholarship book and our,
Yeah, and maybe the book I was reading was old, like I don't know, but
yeah. So
Okay.
does that approach work though? Payable upon commencement of the second semester of studies? Okay.
And just make sure that that says it for all of the awards,
That's
because we
the
have
same for
several,
all.
right?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
same for all.
Okay.
And then we honor the award up to 24 months from graduation. So you have 2 years to essentially go to school and complete a semester before you can. But if you take 5 years to go to school, it's outside of our award window. So
Okay,
yeah.
good. Okay. Thanks. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the next one is housing and utilities. Clarify municipal utilities as cost to be borne by program participants. Update terminology to include all NRM supported housing options.
Yep.
Okay,
How does council feel about that? So we're asking people that are living in the houses that they are going to cover the cost of utilities. I'm good with that, but
I'm also
wondering
good with
how. Okay,
okay.
okay.
So tax forms such as T4As, update ready application to clarify, identify when tax forms will be issued, so all recipients are aware.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
And then in regards to property tax, Director of Finance has confirmed there are no property taxes applicable for 2025. Recommend no changes at this time. Property maintenance. Staff will investigate options for property maintenance and report back to council. We're still looking into that. And then grammar, spelling and grammar corrections will be made and no property taxes will apply. Oh, sorry, my bad. We'll update spelling errors and grammar as required. It's outlined in the report, but we don't want to go through each.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right.
And that is it. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. It was a very well-written report, easy to understand. I like the way you organized it. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we have two options before us. How does council wish to proceed? Councillor Roper?
I'll move recommendation 1 that updates to the NRM's recruitment and retention education and training incentive program be undertaken as proposed.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Dickey. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yay me. Come on, Mayor, at least smile.
I am smiling.
Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to report number 5. The 2025 Wild Safe BC Community Coordinator Grant Application. Mr. O'Shaughnessy.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. We'll make sure I got that right this time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Have the report before you this afternoon, or this evening, sorry. Again, it's a yearly report that comes forward. Looking for support for an application to the 2025 WildSafe BC Community Coordinator Program. And a budget of $6,000 be approved in principle, subject to program approval. So I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention before we go further into the report, that after the report was drafted, we received some new information. Originally, up until this year, the minimum contribution required was $4,000. This year, they have changed that to $6,000. So council has their opportunity to either contribute the 6,000 minimum if you want to proceed, or if you want to, as we've done in the past, bolster our application, you can so choose to up that contribution to whatever you guys see fit.
So
Yeah,
if I
I'll move that.
remember, if I
I was
remember,
just- you Go
I'm
ahead.
going, okay, I'm gonna go, then you can go. Okay. If I remember correctly, when we first brought this into the community, the WildSafe gets more applications than what they have money for. And so it was felt at that time that if the person or when we're applying for funding, our application would be looked on more favorably if it was higher, like it had a higher amount associated. So, Mayor, go ahead.
I'm going to move that the application to the 2025 WildSafe BC Community Coordinator Program be submitted in a budget of $6,000 be pre-approved in principle, subject to program approval.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconder by Councillor Roper. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor? Any opposed? I'm opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, going on to administration report number 6, grant application to UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, Emergency Support Services Funding Stream. Mr. Cavalier.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, Council. This is a grant application to UBCM. This is, just to put it in context, this is one of 3 that you will see from me between now and April. This one is specific to emergency support services. What we're hoping to do with this one is bolster our volunteers. So we'd like to kind of open it up to the community, get them some training, and then some additional equipment for the ESS.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Go
So
ahead.
thank you. Will the $40,000 be discussed with respect to what it might get spent on during the budget discussion? Will there be a page on that?
There will be a pink.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then my question was, any ESS training, can we ensure that it's open to the public?
It will be open to the public.
Great. Okay, perfect. Okay.
We can't do it all. So what our hope is to build some capacity. So we, heaven forbid, ever have to evacuate again, we'll have our own residents in our host communities helping our residents.
Yeah.
And then there is a possibility that these volunteers could also volunteer in other communities on their own
Yep.
to help those host communities.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. Okay. Any, Councillor Roper?
If there's no more discussion, I'm just ready to move the recommendation.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, I'll make the motion that a grant application be submitted to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund to fund 100% of the costs up to $40,000 for the purchase of supplies, equipment, and training for NRM Emergency Support Services function.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Souls. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say any opposed. We're all good. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to report number 7, Fire Smart and Wildfire Resiliency Committee recommendations.
So pursuant to the terms of reference, which states that recommendations will be forwarded to council as soon as practicable. These are the 4 recommendations that the committee has asked me to forward to regional council for consideration.
Okay.
Mayor, are you?
Be right back.
Sorry, I'm back. I just had to get my notebook.
Did you want to help me with this, or do you want me to just go ahead?
Well, you go ahead, and then I'll add whatever you don't do.
Well, I wasn't going to do any of it, but yeah.
Okay, then I'll do it.
No, it's fine. I'm joking, Mayor. Thanks. So the first recommendation is there was some discussion in the last committee meeting that not enough attention is being paid to dealing with holdover fires during the winter season. There seems to be a little bit of reluctance, I think, Mayor, if that maybe not from the local level, but certainly up to middle management. And the recommendation is that we send a letter to the minister responsible to encourage some action on holdover fires, particularly I think in the Patry location for sure, right? And the Comey, from what I remember. So
Yeah, that's correct, and I think there's an opportunity here to introduce our committee and keep this positive. A positive letter to the minister rather than a critical letter to the minister. Introducing our new committee and introducing this idea that we've got a great idea. About getting out there. We've got the capacity in our community to create the the winter roads necessary to get to where they need to get to, and we're concerned about infrastructure. That these fires potentially can impact. And we know that these holdover fires are still burning. And we know last year it started and really the conditions haven't changed that much to this year. And so we're pretty comfortable that these fires are going to pick up and go again. So why not action them? So that's what the committee was doing. I mean, I think they took a bit of a critical view, but I think we can turn this around and we can make it a positive letter to the minister. And then I know that we have our staff have some great contacts in the fire center in Prince George, and I think probably we can give those folks the heads up why we're doing what we're doing, and so that they're not surprised by it. I mean, we don't want to alienate anybody in the Prince George Fire Center with a letter to the minister, so we keep it positive and give them the heads up.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree to be gentle, but give them the ideas from the committee for sure.
Yeah.
The second recommendation is that council engage with staff to make enforcement of the property maintenance bylaw top priority. I bet, my last go around with municipality, this was a concern. I don't know what has transpired over the last 4 years, but I think it has been something that council has been dealing with staff. The one thing here that I will add is in my application, we are going to seek some funding to help with some of that fire smarting of residences here in the community, particularly of seniors and people with mobility issues. So that will go in my application. We meet with the funder on Wednesday, so that is in the works as well, just for context.
Okay, so from what I understand too, in terms of property maintenance bylaw, we're just not relying on a complaint basis anymore. We're actually doing tours of the community and identifying properties. The problem in the municipality is that we have to follow a set rules that we can't just go onto somebody's property and do X, Y, and Z, right? So that process is very long and drawn out, as we probably all remember from our previous years. But for sure that staff is aware, and there, I think, is going to be an increased amount of tours around the community to even earlier identify possible problems, properties.
So the committee's focus here was vacant properties. The intent is hopefully to educate those people who are living on their properties, and perhaps we can talk about incentivizing, later in the budget cycle, what that might look like. But the intent for this enforcement was on vacant properties where landowners or the owners of the property are not necessarily in the community. That's what my thoughts or my remembrance were of the committee's thoughts on this one.
Thank you for the reminder, Mayor. You're absolutely correct. That was the gist of the conversation. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
The third recommendation has already happened. This was to add Matt to the committee. He has been informed after an email poll that he is part of the committee. And this goes back to the committee trying to find its footing and how we report to council and that sort of thing. When we went with that email poll, we hadn't yet decided if we we're going to do an admin report for each recommendation. So I think in the future, we want to be consistent with how we approach council. And I think it'll always be with an admin report, and we'll report that back to the committee just for the sake of convenience for the regional council. And then the fourth recommendation is that we invite somebody from the board of directors of the CFA to join the committee.
Perfect, thank you. Anything to add, Mayor?
I do. So I don't know if all of you had a chance to read the minutes, but there was a few action items that sort of went along with the recommendations. So we see that there's potential for these recommendations to come directly to council, and then these action items to be kept in an action item log. But one of them was, I'll just give you a quick heads up, to consider waiving dump fees for organic matter, throughout the summer when it comes to some of the fire smarting projects that people might do. Talked to the Peace River Regional District about, they have an assistance program for helping fire smart with the seniors, find out what that's about. They'd like to do a community survey with respect to the expectations of the community around the Fire Smart Committee and what some of the activities might look like. They did approve the terms of reference as we approved it. They want to see that we interact, have public meetings on the same frequency that they do the formal meeting with us. So twice a year, once before the fire season, once after the fire season. And they want myself and Terry to put some words around to bring back to them about, the public participation in the meetings. They weren't sure if they wanted to, the meetings are public, but they weren't sure just yet if they're ready to open the actual meeting itself up to public participation at this time. They're not opposed to it, but they'd like us to put some wording around what that might look like. They want to do some mapping, and and some of them are having trouble getting into the box program. So there was some action items around those. So good conversation. I think they're ready to really start looking at maps and understand what the other agencies sort of have planned, and to try to figure out whether or not there's any gaps that they'd like to fill. So I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Thanks.
Great, and you can report back that the landfill has no fees for organic matter drop-off, so.
Okay, all year long?
Yep.
Okay, so even if people have significant wood, yeah, okay, fine.
Right? Like, Mr. Berry.
We'll confirm there's no any items that we're unaware of in terms of things we may be charging for, but from an organics perspective, and it was specific to like vermicomposting and whatnot, there's no fee for that drop off.
Yeah, so yard waste there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's not.
We're not just talking about grass clippings, right? We might be talking about
No,
branches and
yeah,
logs and things like that. Yeah.
We have a size limit, of course, because we only can take so much from our chipper that sounds a landfill. But what we'll do is, I've got a note made of, you can circle back with Terry and group
Great.
here just to discuss, just to make sure that there's clarity or no confusion in terms of what we do or if we need to make any shifts, because
Okay.
so I'll follow up on that.
Yeah,
With
for
the group.
sure. Okay. Terry.
Just as an update, Mayor and the group, based on the committee's recommendation to look into the PRRD elders program, I have now included that in our CRI application. So I have made that change in our application, and I meet with the funder on Wednesday, and I'll be able to report to the committee on Thursday about whether or not that's going to go ahead. I don't see any issues with that being accepted as an action from our application.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So we have an option before us. Anybody like to make a recommendation or a motion to accept the recommendation? Counselor Souls.
Recommend that a letter be sent to the minister responsible for BC Wildfire Service to address holdover fires, as in hotspots, before the start of the fire season, and that regional council engage with staff to make enforcement of property maintenance bylaw a top priority, and that Matt Pilzak be appointed as a member of the Community Fire Smart and Resiliency Committee, and that regional council invite a member of the Community Forest Board of Directors to become a member of the Community Fire Smart and Wildfire Resiliency Committee.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Been an amendment there that Terry wouldn't write the letter to the minister, but we can deal with that after.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm leaving now. Do you need anything before I bug out of the room?
No, you do not have to ask. I was just surprised that you went as quick as you did the last time.
Okay, just keeping us on track now. We're going to 7.5, water use restriction bylaw number 232. Do I have anybody that's going to speak to? Okay. So looking for a motion to adopt. Counselor Dickey, seconded by Counselor Souls. All in favor? Motion, any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 7.6. The revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 233, 2025, that the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw number 233, 2025 be given first, second, and third readings.
Tony was having trouble connecting. So she apologizes for not being here, but figured that this is pretty routine business for council by now.
Right, yeah, we have done this before. Are there any questions on it? Okay,
I'll move for the first 3 readings.
okay. Seconded by Counselor Roper. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so that brings us to 8, correspondence and information package. For information, the interim letter to Maxine Smetiak, oh, sorry if I got that wrong, for her 100th birthday. Letter from the family of Wanda Huntley, redonation. The interim letter to Diana Penny, president of the Fort Nelson Event Society, letter of support. Interim letter to Shauna Malika, executive director of the Fort Nelson Community Literacy Society, regarding immigration initiatives and funding related concerns. And the interim sent a whole host of letters. Do you want me to read them all out? Thank you very
Not mess.
much. You see them before you. So do we need a motion to accept all this? Okay, looking for a motion to accept. Counselor Souls, seconded by Counselor Roper. All in favor? Any opposed? Sorry, I forgot to ask if there's a discussion about the motion, Mayor, but you know.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay, there were no additions. 10, standing items for discussion. Where am I going with that? Okay, that takes us to counselor reports. Are there any counselor reports? Mayor, do you have one?
My only report really got talked about, and that was the meeting that we had with the resiliency, Fire Smart Resiliency Committee. So that's,
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Counselor Dickey.
I did attend the annual library AGM, and the board is all the same. There was no resignations and no replacements, but I just really, really appreciate the work that Danica does there. She just does an amazing job. And you know, she loves her position there. And then the other meeting I went to was the welcoming of our new staff sergeant. And I'm not sure how we who we invited and how we invited them and how the word got out, but I was disappointed that there was only Lorraine and I and Scott. Very few people were there, and I just, when I look at how many complaints there were about the RCMP service, and nobody was here. Well, not nobody, we were here, but there wasn't like a big welcome committee for him. And I think when I was talking to some community members about it, they said, well, who got invited and where was it posted? And I said, well, I think I'm not even sure who got invited. I just know I got invited, but I think a big welcoming for our new staff sergeant should be made a big deal of it.
I
Right?
think
Because
it was just an opportunity for mayor and council to meet with him and Fort Nelson First Nations, right? I don't think it was at that point open to the public. Yeah.
will we be doing something for him though? No?
I can speak. So in terms of the invitees, it was at the request of the RCMP, and it was discussions to do an introduction with the agencies. So the agencies were invited. So everyone who was invited, that was a discussion that was just I guess mutually agreed upon between the RCMP and the various agencies. So it was important that BCEHS, so BC Ambulance, Fire Department, representative from council at this point, which Deputy Mayor, Councilor Dickey, you were invited on behalf of with your position with FNFN, DNED. And then there was the chamber from a business community perspective. The intent was to the sergeant, so for council's information, so it's sergeant, staff sergeant position is still vacant or unfilled, I guess, at this point, but the sergeant's position has been filled. He's been in community a couple of weeks now, came in January 6th, I believe. And the intent was to introduce the individual to the various agencies at that point. It wasn't as Deputy Mayor said, wasn't a public meet and greet per se. It was an opportunity to officially meet the individual that provides a service to the various agencies and the corresponding agencies that will work with them. As an organization, we did put a welcome out on our feeds to welcome to the community. And I guess from there, it's up to what they would like, maybe in the RCMP in terms of, because it's not our show per se to maybe we can provide some feedback or suggestions, but it's their
It's up to
Sure.
them
It's up
to
to them,
handle
yeah.
that part of it. Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else, Councilor Dickey? No? Okay, good. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you, Councilor Roper. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. So I didn't get a chance to attend, obviously, because I was at work, and I talked to Chief Harold, and he was in Prince George at the resource conference. I think that's what he was at. Maybe he was in Vancouver. He'd been in a couple of places. Anyways, I talked to him, and him and I would both like to sit with the new sergeant, maybe go for a bit of a ride around the community, have a discussion. Maybe at that time I can approach it to him whether or not he's interested in a public meeting where he can introduce himself and people might be able to ask him a few questions. So I'll
Great,
take that.
thank you.
I'll take that on when the chief and I get an opportunity to meet with him.
Great, thanks. Okay, so I'll go. January the 15th, I attended the official community plan steering committee meeting. And I had the honor to attend Maxine's 100th birthday celebration on January 20th and pass on birthday wishes on behalf of mayor and council. January 21st, I attended a meet and greet with our new sergeant, who has hit the ground running. Among other discussion points, I mentioned how as a council, we used to appreciate the detachment commander attending a council meeting every quarter to give us the statistics and ongoing communications. So I put that bug in his ear. Maybe he'll pick it up. June 2nd to the 6th is Seniors Week in BC, and Lee Cook, our community paramedic, is spearheading a community initiative that week to celebrate our seniors. So watch for details forthcoming. Also on I attended the BC Rural Health Network meeting where Leanne Hempel, the executive VP and chief ambulance officer, was the guest speaker. So I was able to ask her why our non-emergency medevac opportunities for Villers-Air had dropped off, and she committed to looking into the situation and reporting back to me. January the 23rd, I attended the Fort Nelson District Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, and just a reminder, or put it in your books, that the annual trade show takes place on May 3rd and 4th. And I would just like to give a huge shout out to everybody that was involved in the community play SpongeBob SquarePants, which took place last week, presenting 5 shows. It was fabulous as always, and well done, everyone. Okay. 10.2, business outstanding. So update on gifts to host communities following the Parker Lake wildfire evacuation. Miss McIver, please.
Yes, sorry. So we had, we've been gathering some information, but it wasn't report ready. So we're going to do a verbal update for council's benefit, because I know this one's been sitting on the burner for a while. So in October, I think it was, council had asked us to look into some options for gifts of thanks to the communities that received us during the evacuation. So, and then in addition to that, also sending gifts of appreciation to the fire departments that assisted our fire department throughout the course of the wildfires. So we've looked after that. That was actually the easy part. There was, I think, 12 or 16 different fire departments that assisted. So before Christmas, we sent them a piece of a canvas print with the Northern Lights with the light of the wildfire in the background, and a plaque just expressing our thanks for their assistance. And then we have gone back a few times on the meeting that was in October, and there was a bit of a breadth of ideas thrown around in terms of what council might like to do for a gift of appreciation to these reception communities. So we're actually looking for a bit more guidance. So one of the suggestions made was for a print or a piece of art. So we did acquire a few extra pieces before Christmas from some local photographers that we have in stock. But then some other suggestions were made around like a public art installation or an enhancement to a park or a chainsaw carving. And so, I mean, those things vary quite significantly in value. But we have taken a look. So there's a chainsaw carving artist that can provide commissioned carvings. They range from about $2,000 to $5,000 depending on size. But then we've also reached out to the 3 communities. So there was 4 reception communities. There was Fort St. John, obviously, which had the most significant number of evacuees. Dawson Creek had a little less than half of the amount of evacuees that Fort St. John received. Then Chetwynd had, I think it was in the 64, 65, 67. And then Prince George had 4. So those were the 4 communities that that accepted our community members. But we reached out to Chetwynd, Fort St. John, and Dawson Creek just to kind of get a feel for what projects they might have on the go this year for like parks improvements or public downtown revival. Who knows what they're doing that maybe we could consider supporting financially or with a bench or something like that. So all of them have projects, not surprisingly, of various magnitudes. So Fort St. John is doing continued enhancements to their Kin Park pump track site. Dawson Creek is past the design phase for a spray park, and Chetwynd is looking at an outdoor running track. So yeah, so they all have things on the go that, you know, maybe we can factor something into, but again, looking for a little bit more guidance in terms of order of magnitude, value, any specific direction would be helpful, I think, especially as we go into budget season. So
Great.
yeah.
Thank you. I see your hand, Mayor. I just wanted to, because I shared the Chetwynd numbers, feel that I should share the other numbers. So Dawson Creek, there were 804 evacuees, and Fort St. John had 2,991 registered. So go ahead, Mayor.
Thanks. So based on the project that you said these folks were doing, I like the, or probably the other communities were doing, I like the idea of benches. You know, if it's at the pump track, you could put benches where folks could, you know, do their changing or sit down, have a rest. Or Fort St. John, I think a couple of benches. I think we use the dog park a lot. I like to see a bench or two in the dog park, and maybe in the downtown, the central area there, Centennial Park, I guess is what they call it.
Right.
And in Dawson Creek, we could do the same at the, or maybe I got them mixed
At
up.
the spray park.
At the spray park.
It was spray park. No, yeah,
At the
you're
spray
right.
park in Dawson Creek, and you know, and
Yeah.
you know, hopefully we could pick something that fits with their decor or their design or whatever it is, and then to just have a nice plaque or something attached to the bench, just to remind people, and they'll be there for a long time, and that's what I'd like to see us do.
I like 100% support that idea. I love the idea of benches, and I like the idea of multiple ones in Fort St. John. As you mentioned, for sure, a couple at the dog park, because like that's where we all met, was the dog park. But also Centennial Park, because we gathered there as well. Unless Fort St. John wants to see something in their redevelopment of their Kin Park. So
Yeah.
maybe we can get guidance from them. Council, how does the rest of everybody feel about that? I'm looking like we have consensus. The other thing that I wondered, Mayor, is that perhaps we can design the plaques ourselves, so that it's what we want to have on there.
Yep. I don't, sometimes you can get these, I really like that picture that we gave to the fire departments. And, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
you can get a brass plaque that has, you know, that photograph sort of embossed onto it. I think that would be nice too, if we could research something like that.
So the other thing that we need to maybe give some guidelines on is the amount of money, like a dollar value.
More than $1.
So do we want to get some quotes for, I mean, you know, it depends on what the different communities choose as their benches, because the cement ones that we choose are considerable. Like if we want a couple in Fort St. John, we're not doing that for $5,000. So I guess we need some input from the communities. If we decide we're doing benches, some might want a certain design, some might want the concrete ones. I think most are going to the concrete ones because it doesn't lend itself to being vandalized as much as the other ones, but does that give you enough guidelines? Yes, we're good to go. All right. Excellent. Anything else, council? No? Okay, good, thanks. Okay, that's done. Any notice of motion? Okay. Public news, media question and answer period, budget, priorities set by council, council business. Seeing none, yes, no, Alicia, done, okay. So resolution to move to a closed meeting, that the meeting be closed pursuant to section 91A of the community charter. A being personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality, and C, labor relations or other employee relations.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded by Counselor Souls. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Great. Great. So welcome back to the Regional Council meeting for January the 27th. We have a rise and report. Ms. McIver.
Moved by Counselor Roper, seconded by Counselor Dickey to appoint Bev Vandersteen, Murray Abbs, Pablo Bazarque, Casey Gardner, Marnie Nylander, Cindy Bond, Jocelyn McDonald, Kim Aglinski, Wayne Sawchuk, Glenda Simpson, Francine Freeman, Ernst Schildknecht, Richard Resner, and Kathy Murphy as members to the Tourism Advisory Committee for a 2-year term. Carried unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. And I will adjourn this meeting. Good night.
Good night, everybody.